childhood. It's a time to learn and a time to grow. A time to discover for yourself what the world is all about. We can see in the growing years the evolution of the child's ability to act, to think, and to interact. Most fascinating in these years is cognitive development, the growth of the child's mind. Cognitive development encompasses the changes in thought processes that affect reasoning, language, and memory.
Well, it's sort of hard because half of you is saying that, no, you shouldn't give them...
Think, well, why didn't I make the other decision instead?
The field of cognitive psychology was pioneered by Swiss biologist Jean Piaget. By studying many children, Piaget developed an explanation of the child's intellectual development. He recognized that children's thought processes go through predictable stages.
Piaget wondered why children make the mistakes they do. He wondered what was the nature of the thought process behind each error. And answering this question led to a 60-year career starting in the 1920s in which Piaget pursued this question.
Piaget was able to show that children actually think rather differently than we do. They're not just simplified adults. They really have thought processes of their own.
How the child contributes to his own cognitive development was a major theme for Piaget. The child is active, trying to control the world, trying to understand. And so the child is constantly contributing to his own cognitive development.
Piaget's background as a biologist made a strong stamp on his developmental psychology. At one point, he said that he had been haunted by the idea of developing a kind of embryology of intelligence. And he saw a parallel between the way an embryo goes through stages and the way a child goes through stages of cognitive development.
In Piaget's theory, there are 4 major stages of cognitive development: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational.
The first stage is the sensory motor period, which goes roughly from birth to 2 years of age. By sensory, he was referring to the fact that at this point in development, the child takes in information through the senses, through feeling, through touching, through smelling. By motor and sensory motor, he meant that the child shows his or her intelligence through her motor actions on the world. As an example of sensory motor intelligence, we can look at the nesting cup task. And here a child can demonstrate a knowledge of size ordering through the way the child puts the cups together in motor action. For example, the child can show a knowledge of largest as the cup that can hold all the other cups. So here the child shows this knowledge of large, middle, and small through his own actions, through the sense of feel. The second stage is called the pre-operational stage, and that starts when the sensory motor period ends and goes roughly to about age 5 or 6. The pre-operational stage builds on sensory motor intelligence because it involves knowledge of objects and actions, but it also goes beyond sensory motor knowledge through the use of symbols, through the use of language. A pre-operational child can also solve a problem that has to do with size ordering, but this time the child will use language. So, for example, in a task where you have 3 rods lined up at the bottom, going from the biggest to the middle to the smallest, and you ask the child which is the largest, the child can answer.
Which one is the longest?
This one.
And which one is the shortest? And which one's the middle one? Very good. Now, I'm going to take them up, and I'm going to sort of mix them around, and I'm going to put them...
But there are limits to the child's cognitive abilities at this stage.
Now, can you tell me which one is the longest?
This one.
That one. Which one's the shortest?
This one.
And which one's the middle one?
Just one.
And how do you know?
The third stage Piaget identified is the concrete operational period, from about 6 or 7 to 11 or 12 years of age.
Concrete refers to the fact that the child is still limited to thinking about objects that he or she can perceive through the senses. Operational refers to the fact that the child must mentally operate on these objects, must transform the objects in his or her mind. For example, you can have a concrete operational form of a size ordering problem.
Now tell me, which is the longest? Which is the shortest? Which is the middle one? How do you know?
I followed the mixing up.
You followed my mixing up. That was very clever. Is there any other way you can tell?
Yeah, by measuring it.
Well, you want go ahead and measure.
So the concrete operational child can mentally manipulate objects and then explain these mental transformations.
Very good. All right, excellent.
The child enters the fourth and last stage of formal operations, beginning at around age 11 and continuing into adulthood.
At the formal operational stage, the child is able to mentally operate not just on concrete objects, but on abstract verbal statements. For example, you can have a size ordering or seriation problem in a formal operational form.
A is shorter than C. B is longer than C. Which is the longest?
B.
B. And which is the shortest?
A.
And how do you know that?
Because A is shorter than C and B is larger than C.
Yes.
So A is shorter than B and C, so that only leaves A to be the shortest.
Right.
And B is...
By doing mental manipulation of abstract statements, the child shows the beginnings of formal operational thinking.